had a great talk with Mexico, and we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much, and we've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000. Could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do.
God bless President Trump. And you know, we got to show you what they don't want to show you, what they don't want you to see.
Beautiful. Hey. Wait, come here, one more. Okay. Oh, she's such a big girl.
All right. And in 3, 2, 1, big smile.
Okay, honey.
President, what does Canada and Mexico need to do for you to lift the tariffs? What are specifically you want? That have to balance out their trade, number one. That's got to stop people from pouring into our country, and we've stopped it. They haven't stopped it. We've stopped it. They have to stop people from pouring in, and we have to stop fentanyl, and that includes China. Fentanyl has killed this year at least 200,000 people. It's pouring in from China through Mexico and Canada, and they've got to stop it. And if they don't stop it, the tariffs are going to get worse, a lot worse.
Mr. President, you're going to the border.
Daddy's home.
Alert, and the breaking news of the day is on.
Daddy's home. Made them surrender, brought them to their knees. And we just keep winning. This is when you have a real president. Ain't nobody going on vacation. Ain't nobody falling asleep. Make America great again. And it's happening. Yeah, buddy. Shout out to them beautiful patriots around the world. Couldn't wait to break it to you.
On tariffs, and we just have word that the Mexican president spoke to Donald Trump, and they are going to pause the tariffs on Mexico for 1 month. And Jackie Heinrich is standing by at the White House with more on this development. Hi, Jackie.
Good morning, Dana. Yeah, that was pretty short-lived. The president spoke with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, the two sides agreeing to pump the brakes on the tariffs and then retaliatory tariffs that Mexico promised for the period of a month while they work out the terms of an agreement. The Mexican president just posted some of the details. Mexico is going to immediately send 10,000 members of the National Guard to prevent drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, particularly fentanyl. Also, she says the U.S. is going to work with Mexico to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico, something that Mexico hit back at when President Trump was threatening these tariffs. Was they were calling on the U.S. to curb the flow of guns from the U.S. down to the cartels. Sheinbaum says the two teams are going to begin working today on two fronts, security and trade. And President Trump posted on Truth Social that part of that team is going to include Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, as well as some representatives from Mexico.
Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Why this beat so cold?
We will make America proud again. And you try to we will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
God bless them beautiful patriots around the world. Good morning. Good afternoon. Or whatever time it is. I hope everybody is having an amazing day so far, an amazing week. What today is Monday, ain't it? And, you know, I was supposed to be in the shower, and then I said, "Oh, my president has put his boots on." I don't even think he went to sleep. He got them same boots on, and he been stomping the ground. He not dragging them boots on the floor. We stomping on with them boots. We stomping. Boom, 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 boom. Woo! We just keep winning. Told you. Now we got a president. We got an actual president. Daddy's home. He done pulled that belt out. I'm telling you, when Daddy used to come, when we used to act bad in school, we knew. And he came home with that belt. He told us to turn around on the sofa. You better not look at me. I'm gonna add more pops. If you look, if you run, if you cry, I'm gonna add more pops. Why? Told you. We are so back. You know, less than 48 hours apart. Less than 48 hours. 48. Tariffs don't work. They're gonna run. It's gonna. You know how the left say it. It's gonna ruin everything. He's gonna do this. It's gonna be a wound to America. Tariffs don't work. Hey, Trump's put his foot down and set them things out, and she gone and said, oh, "Sorry, Your Majesty. I'm so sorry." Woo. Yep. And after 48, I just spoke with the president, and then it was a very friendly conversation. She agreed immediately. She agreed immediately. We've seen the man get this done sitting on a golf cart. Just last week, we've seen this man handling some of the biggest things, and people think that we're playing, man. We are back. You know? And it's been absolutely a disgrace. An absolute disgrace, man. But let me know what y'all think of all this. Let's get it. We got another video to pull up. I again really do hope that y'all are having an amazing week, starting the week off strong, man. We wishing the best in everybody's life. You know. We're on the ground with it. You know, and next we need to get these prices, these rates, and all this stuff down. Hope we can knock out some of that soon, man. So everybody can start walking around and really smiling. You know, we need wins with the economy, but again, it's a process. And again, they're gonna try to blame Trump for this, and that from the previous administration. And there's a lot of cleaning up we're doing right now. A lot of cleaning up, a lot of draining that we are doing right now. And again, but this is showing you that we are back. And we just going to keep winning. I told you, I'm going to be here to report it for you guys. We're just going to keep winning.
We begin with this Fox News alert. President Trump has the world's attention now. He came through on a campaign promise, hitting Canada, Mexico, and China with tariffs to protect Americans from the...
Doing what he campaigned on. What he campaigned on. Promises made, promises kept. And they thought we were BSing around. Nah. And we spoke loud and clear. Here we are.
The flow of illegal immigrants and fentanyl in this country. And we can now report Mexico and Canada are leaning into Trump's art of the deal. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum.
I got to crack me up a cold one. I really do. I got to crack. It's that cherry right there.
Spoke to Trump and is saying she will send 10,000 Mexican military to their side of the southern border. That's meant to assist with the border crisis left behind by the Biden-Harris administration. Trump says they agreed to pause any tariffs for 30 days. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The president also just spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and we'll talk with him again today in a few hours. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Peter, a lot of movement today.
Just in the last few minutes, Harris, we found out how much it costs to get rid of a 25% tariff for a month. The cost is 10,000 Mexican troops, and President Trump himself just went live confirming this. He's saying, I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariff for 1 month, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and high-level representatives from Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. And the president deployed some of his economic advisors to the shows this morning to explain that this wasn't about punishing consumers, it was about something else.
President Trump was absolutely 100% clear that this is not a trade war, this is a drug war. There are perhaps 100,000 people last year that died of fentanyl, and the fentanyl is coming in across the Mexican and Canadian borders. 80, 90, 95% of Mexicans want the drug war to end, and the same is true in Canada.
The only event on President Trump's schedule later today is an event at 3 p.m. celebrating the Stanley Cup win of the Florida Panthers. That's right around the time that we understand he's also supposed to talk to Prime Minister Trudeau. We will see if Trudeau is able to head off the tariffs there for a month, something that we have not heard about yet. Is he also going to talk to China's President Xi, who he is threatening with 10% tariffs as well? Harris?
All right, Peter, thank you so very much. There will be, as Peter's pointing out, if something doesn't get worked out with Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau and President Trump, there will be a 10% tariff on Canadian energy imports and a 25% tariff.
If y'all missed our video yesterday, man, make sure you go check it out with Canada. Oh, boy. Trudeau, I mean, it's just...
all other Canadian imports.
Didn't he
would
quit?
have been on all Mexican imports at midnight. As you know, Mexico just moments ago said 30 days, give us 30 days to work this out. I'm paraphrasing, but that's effectively what's happening. There will also be an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports. And you just heard Peter ask, so are they going to come to the table? Well, we'll see. The day is young, and there's a lot of talking going on. Steve Hilton, Fox News contributor. Steve, people are moving, and I think you have a pretty clear-eyed idea of why.
Because you have someone in the White House who is taking control. He's in charge. He's at the height of his powers. He's commanding the American stage, the world stage. And by the way, this is what we saw before. So the reason people are so completely kind of losing it over the weekend ever since these tariffs is just completely incomprehensible to me. I remember it very clearly last time round, because then the real issue with Mexico wasn't just fentanyl. It was also, of course, immigration and the caravans and all of that. And I remember that President Trump announced 25% tariffs on Mexico via a tweet, as it was then called, on a Sunday night just before we went on air with my show. And we covered it, and within days you saw exactly the same kind of quick reaction. The then president of Mexico sent troops to their southern border, and it's happened again. And here is someone who's completely ripping up the playbook of how things operate in terms of relationships between countries. I remember, of course, being back in the day I was in 10 Downing Street in the UK, and I saw how it was done, the traditional way. And governments, when there's an issue with another country, and they send their representatives, and you have diplomats, and maybe in 6 months there's some kind of summit, and then they issue working papers, and maybe in 2 years something happens. With President Trump, he's not interested in any of that. That's why people elected him, to get things done quickly.
We spoke loud and clear, man.
Within just practically 24 hours in terms of the fentanyl issue, which, by the way, he understands so deeply because he understands the communities most affected by it.
You know, it's great to get your front row seat to history from David Cameron's leadership in the UK and apply that now. Our brand new American citizen and friend, Steve Hilton, we really appreciate that. Please sit tight with me as I work through this, because you said 24 hours. I feel like it's been 24 minutes. Because they were still kind of trash talking with, we're coming with our own, we're doing this tariff against the United States. Treasury Secretary, who'll be a big part of this, Scott Bessent, will be in a major position in upcoming trade talks. And he wrote a recent opinion piece about this. He says, the truth is that other countries have taken advantage of the United States' openness for far too long because we allowed them to. Tariffs are a means to finally stand up for Americans. He also said this during his confirmation hearing.
One will be for remedying unfair trade practices. Two, maybe for a more generalized tariff as a revenue raiser. for the federal budget. Tariffs can be used for negotiations, whether it's for Mexico on the fentanyl crisis. I think you and the American people should think about those three broad categories.
Wow. I tell you, the ball is moving. Now, tell me what you forecast with China, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think you're going to see the same. And of course, it's vital because the precursor chemicals are coming from China. So you need to work on every aspect of that supply chain, as it were. And again, look back what happened last time. Is just before the COVID pandemic threw a wrench in everything. But President Trump had negotiated with China, despite all the rhetoric, oh, we're going to have third world war with China, the critics were saying. But he had a good relationship with President Xi. They knew where each other stood, and he negotiated a trade deal with China. It was many people don't remember because days later we were right in the thick of the pandemic. So I'm very confident that these two can do business with each other, and President Trump will convey to the Chinese regime that you can't keep getting away with this, and we are serious. And already, by the way, they've closed a technical loophole that has enabled for decades now the import of cheap products from China, avoiding duties and taxes. They've already done that. No one even noticed. So this new administration is deadly serious about all of this.
Well, look, there's one more ground that they can hit with China, and you alluded to it a little bit with the talk about the COVID pandemic, and that is that most of the materials to make some of our medicines, particularly for diabetics and all sorts across the spectrum, some of the most expensive medicines to make and for Americans to buy, they're made in China. So, I mean, there's the pressure that they have put on us. We can alleviate for ourselves if we can do some of that in this country. And Trump is also putting out that olive branch. Cuts you down to 15% taxes if you start to do some of that stuff here in the United States. There's a lot he comes forth with. Look, real quickly, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, will be the first visit in the White House for his second term as President Trump. What do you make of the future and Hamas's hostage release and ceasefire deal at this point?
Well, you know, this is harder. This is harder because you're not dealing with rational actors like the leaders of major countries, whether that's China or Mexico or Canada. You're dealing with a murderous death cult in the form of Hamas, and there's very little leverage that anyone there has over them, particularly in their completely weakened state. Despite that, however, the minute that you saw President Trump, he was President-elect Trump, actually, when he got involved, you saw progress in a way that you hadn't seen for over a year from Biden, who was just there in the White House doing who knows what, falling asleep half the time, doing nothing. And then President Trump actually got things moving. And so I am optimistic. I would say I'm less optimistic because it's harder. He's got less leverage than with these other countries. But I don't think there's anyone on earth that you would rather have meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister tomorrow and trying to get the second phase of this deal done than Donald Trump, because he's already shown he knows how to do it. He's already delivered hostage releases, both in the Middle East and elsewhere across the world. We saw that with Rick Grenell the other day. I mean, the scale of his kind of practical achievements, every day something is happening because he's serious and he's engaged, well prepared, a great professional team. It's absolutely astonishing to watch this new president in action.
Well, I tell you, for all of the pearl clutching
Keep winning, baby.
And the breaking news of the day is on tariffs, and we just have word that the Mexican president spoke to Donald Trump, and they are going to pause the tariffs on Mexico for 1 month. And Jackie Heinrich is standing by at the White House with more on this development. Hi, Jackie.
Good morning, Dana. Yeah, that was pretty short-lived. The president spoke with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, the two sides agreeing to pump the brakes on the tariffs and then retaliatory tariffs that Mexico promised for the period of a month while they work out the terms of an agreement. The Mexican president just posted some of the details. Mexico is going to immediately send 10,000 members of the National Guard to prevent drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, particularly fentanyl. Also, she says the U.S. is going to work with Mexico to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico, something that Mexico hit back at when President Trump was threatening these tariffs tariffs was they were calling on the U.S. to curb the flow of guns from the U.S. down to the cartels. Sheinbaum says the two teams are going to begin working today on two fronts, security and trade. And President Trump posted on Truth Social that part of that team is going to include Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, as well as some representatives from Mexico. The president says he's going to be speaking with outgoing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at 3 o'clock. He posted to Truth Social, Canada doesn't even allow U.S. banks to open or do business there. What's all that about? Many such things, but it's also a drug war. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in the U.S. from drugs pouring through the borders of Mexico and Canada. Just spoke to Justin Trudeau and will be speaking to him again at 3 p.m. So a glimmer of hope there for Canada that they might be able to also achieve a pause, as Mexico did, if some terms are agreed to. But certainly a lot of fast-moving developments here this morning ahead of that midnight deadline when the 25% tariffs were set to go into effect, Dana.
I wanted to hop in here. This Truth Social suggests that this negotiation is kind of the start of this deal. As you put up this Truth Social, the 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and United States, as well as you mentioned this team of Rubio, Bessent, Lutnick to negotiate whatever this deal looks like. So what the Mexicans are agreeing to now may be just the first step in what President Trump wants to happen before the month.
Yeah, Brett, it does sound like that. Certainly you had the president last night when he returned to the White House talking about trade deficits and that being a component of his gripe with these countries. He also, in that discussion, mentioned that he would be looking at the EU and potentially the UK to pursue some tariffs against them. We assume to achieve some sort of similar trade deal. But you did have the NEC director come out this morning and try to sort of soften the president's remarks about this being about trade, saying, look, it's a drug war, it's not a trade war. The main focus for this administration is certainly about illegal immigration and illegal drugs pouring across the border. And that was something that President Trump spoke about all through the campaign and in the lead up to this coming into effect.
Jackie, one of the things President Trump did last night is, in the quick video that he did, he said that there might be some short-term pain for Americans, but saying that it would be worth it in the end.
Yeah, and that was a pretty significant admission, I think, because when you look at these three countries, Canada, Mexico, and China, that's about 40% of U.S. imports. Yep. So there's really no way to avoid some kind of pain when it's an across-the-board tariff, especially when you consider that the 10% tariff for Canada was on energy as well. So you could see some ramifications. Of course, Democrats jumped on that ahead of the Super Bowl. They were saying that this is a Trump tax increase, and look at your Corona beer and your guacamole.
Again, they're going to wipe them through the mud, y'all. But the floor plan got to be set. It got to be put out. And then you build, and then it gets beautiful. It gets furnished. I'm telling you, just the floor plan has to be set, man. But again, they're going to, as y'all know, the left and how they spin things and how they're gonna make this man look as bad as they can. We got Democrats calling him a thug, live on air, calling him raggedy. Our government's raggedy. He's a thug. I mean, a disgrace, man. But you see what's going on.
You can blame the president if your prices go up. But the president, in talking about the possibility that we would feel some pain, really doubled down on the unfair practices of these countries. He really took issue with Canada and said that they've been abusive to the U.S. in terms of trade. And he also repeated his points on illegal immigration and on the flow of fentanyl. So it was something to hear him say that, but it was also obvious to a certain extent. But this avoiding that from happening, at least for the next 30 days, we saw this go on with his negotiations with Colombia. That was, the briefest of trade wars I think we've seen yet. So certainly he's a strong negotiator, was able to get something done this morning, and we'll see if more comes together in the next 30 days and we can stave it off permanently for all these countries.
Yeah, we're looking live in Mexico City, Jackie, and that is the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, giving some briefing to reporters about what has just transpired. The interesting thing here is, as Mexico is saying, here's what we're going to do, we've got a 1-month pause, whether that message translates to Canada and how that goes, with the same tariffs that go into effect at midnight tonight.
You will see. I mean, the president also was pretty complimentary of Mexico when he was talking about this going into effect. He said, look, we've had some good conversations, but we got to do it. He hasn't been quite as complimentary to Trudeau. He's been complimentary to the people of Mexico, but said he's got problems with the leadership there. So we'll see how their conversation goes at 3.
Jackie Heinrich at the White House with the breaking news. Thank you so much.